Graces, Reverend Fathers, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, parliamentary colleagues, and most importantly this evening, Holodomor survivors. I am moved to join with you tonight in the beginning of the commemoration of the Holodomor-Genocide by famine tour of this sacred flame that will cross Canada and which is crossing the world in the 75th anniversary of one of the most notorious crimes against humanity committed in the last century, a century which the late Pope John Paul II frequently called the century of tears. In his remarks in the commemoration of Parliament of this anniversary, Prime Minister Harper said, quotes, that the honest and hardworking people who had tilled the rich soil of Ukraine successfully for centuries were forced to farm for the Soviet state. By crushing private ownership, initiative, and dignity, collectivization destroyed most of their agricultural production, and the Soviets stole the rest. The result was one of the worst famines the world has ever known. Millions of men, women, and children died of starvation. Those who refused to yield were slaughtered. We in Canada are bonded to this dark chapter in human history by more than 1 million Canadians of Ukrainian descent, many of whom lost loved ones in the Holodomor. And so all Canadians join in commemorating the 75th anniversary of the terrible crime of 1932-33, because what was done to the Ukrainian people was a mortal offense against the values we hold dearest. Elie Wiesel said, quotes, if anything can, it is memory that will save humanity. Remembering is a noble and necessary act. The call to memory, the call of memory, reaches us from the very dawn of history. No commandment figures so frequently, so insistently in the Bible. It is incumbent upon us to remember the good we have received and the evil that we have suffered. This evening's ceremony and the passage of this flame across Canada and throughout the world is precisely such a sacred act of memory, which honors those who were so brutally taken, and which reminds and inspires all of us to combat the genocidal impulse which continues tragically in the world today. Thank you.
Good evening. Добрый вечер. Your Eminence, Your Graces, Reverend Fathers, clergy, thank you for the kind introduction. I want to begin by thanking you for the invitation to address you this evening. I want to thank the President of the League of Ukrainian Canadians and the Holodomor Project's coordinator, Orst, for guiding me and showing me that history is not in books, it's in people. For the many here today in particular, the Holodomor survivors, there is no need to state this day's significance. We know that you will have many sad and bitter memories, many recollections of personal and family tragedy and good sacrifice. You will recall people you knew, family and friends who died and who now, across the years, come back to you and make you grieve fresh and vivid. Today and every day, we pay tribute to you for your sacrifice. Indeed, today's commemoration is important for those that did experience the famine. It is also enormously important for those too young to understand and to feel its significance. A great many Ontarians have no personal experience of forced famine or tyranny, no way of knowing the anguish and the chaos that plagues a dictator's time in power. Some Ontarians have. Some of us cannot comprehend the insanity of human loss that occurred in Ukraine from 1932 to 1933. For that reason, amongst others, it's important for all Ontarians to commemorate Holodomor and the Ukraine community who bore its burden. As the MPP for Brant, I would like to take a moment to pay tribute to the Ukrainian community in my riding. It's a strong, vibrant, and proud community. One that has helped build the foundations of our city itself, and one that continues to help make Brantford the best place in the world and in the province to live. I'm sorry, Mayor Miller. It's a community that only 35 years ago commemorated the Holodomor through a mock funeral at the Ukrainian Catholic Church of St. John the Baptist on Terraced Hill Street. It was covered in the public news. It is also a community that is the home of a number of Holodomor survivors. For instance, survivors like Mrs. Zina Semivalos of Brantford. Zina grew up just outside of Kiev. She was 10 years old, and when the famine hit in 1932, living with her mother and two sisters, Zina considers herself lucky. Lucky because her mother was a teacher, and she was given 1/2 kilo of flour per child and 1 kilo for herself per week. With this flour, the family were able to make enough soup and bread to sustain themselves during those perilous times. Many of her friends in her community of 31,000 people were not so lucky. Many sold everything that they had to buy food. Many lost their lives because they ran out of things to sell. But amongst the suffering, as it is so often does in world history, the spirit of human compassion became evident. Zina's mother often shared her rations of flours with her neighbors, helping them to survive, although it barely fed her and her children. Commemorating the sacrifice of Zina and all Ukrainians is another resident of my riding, Mrs. Marcia Skripik of Brantford. Marcia has written 2 award-winning books on the Holodomor. The children's folktale, Enough, about a young girl's attempts to save her village from starvation, and the short story, The Rings, have been praised by critics alike and colleagues for their ability to explore the Holodomor in a sensitive and accessible manner. So much so that Marcia has been recognized for her work by the Ukrainian government and will receive the Order of Princess Ola by the President Viktor Yushchenko on May 25th of this year. I personally extend my congratulations to Marcia for her courageous work on the Holodomor. She has had death threats. It serves as an invaluable resource for younger generations to this historic tragedy. I have worked with Worst in the Ukrainian League of Canadians to also achieve recognition of the Holodomor. Just yesterday, I introduced the Holodomor Memorial Day Act in the Ontario Legislature. If passed, this bill will proclaim the 4th Saturday in November each year as Holodomor Memorial Day. My colleagues at Queen's Park will be exposed to the importance of this day, that it holds not only for Ukrainians, but for all of us, as a reminder of the necessity to steadfastly oppose oppression and cruelty. In closing, never again is often used as a rally call to outrage the crimes against humanity. That is why commemorating the Holodomor through the efforts of the Ukrainian League of Canadians here today, through the novels of my constituent, Marcia Skripik, or through acts of the legislature or parliament, it is so important so we can truly say, never again. Dieu.